Hello, welcome back to Black Book Stacks. I am your host, Hoshana Sanders. It's been a minute. I have been reading and not recording anything on the channel, so that is what the deal is. I can't believe summer is almost over, but here we are. I just finished The Death of Vivek Oji by Akwaeke Emezi, whose name I'm probably butchering, but I'm sorry. And this is, typical goodness. I understand it's already on the New York Times bestseller list, so good for them. I hesitated to read it. I had it for a little while, I'll just be honest, because I wasn't really in the right headspace, I think, to be reading about death during pandemic, but I actually found myself really moved, and I could really resonate with the way that they wrote about grief and belonging. Vivek is an unusual person, and has a community around him that doesn't really see the way that he would rather express his gender and his personhood until it's too late. I think it's maybe the spoiler alert is in the title, so we know that Vivek dies, but the beautiful thing about the storytelling here is that there's all of this, not really mystery, but there are narrative details that are withheld and that come together slowly as you progress throughout the novel. And so, like their previous books like Freshwater and Pet, there is this distinctive and confident command of storytelling that isn't just based in like trauma porn. I love that they are committed to telling stories that are not just about the death of gender nonconforming people and individuals and the pain of it, but also the beauty and the liberation, and how that beauty and liberation of just being oneself or selves really ends up not just educating others, but also inspiring them and changing the way that they see the world and themselves in it. So yeah, this is deep. It's beautiful though. Highly recommended. As always, a huge fan of their work. I also recently read Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam. I think I might have mentioned this on the channel before. It comes out in October. It is going to be talked about like a thriller. It is not really that. It is, I think about Get Out when I think about this novel, in part because it is about upending expectations of what we normally see, and also crafting a narrative of class and race on the way to looking at how do we respond to disaster, what do we have at our disposal in order to do so. But it's also a novel that is about kids, it is about parental anxiety, and it is about essentially there's some sort of catastrophic blackout event that has hit New York City, and Amanda and Clay basically go to Long Island. I think they're in the Hamptons. I want to say that. I'm not sure. I'm like very Bronx centric, so like I don't even know what the hell happens in Long Island. But anyway, so yeah, apparently like they're somewhere over there, and this disaster happens, and then they find themselves essentially stuck in their vacation home with the owners Ruth and GH. I think he's like George Washington, like George H. Washington is this black man's name. Anyways, so this older black couple actually owns the house that Amanda and Clay, who are white, are staying in as like their vacation place with their children. And it's the children who see kind of the signs of disaster and maybe how to survive it first. But you know, there's all this really great dialogue, and it's just this really cinematic book. So this is one of the fall reads that I have really enjoyed reading, and so that yeah, Leave the World Behind. Look out for it. The UK cover is stunning. It has deer on it, and it's just like amazing. Another one I'm looking forward to that I haven't read yet is When No One Is Watching, a thriller by Alyssa Cole. I'm just struck. This actually does have like has Get Out as kind of a comparison. Rear Window meets Get Out in this gripping thriller. From a critically acclaimed New York Times notable author, in which the gentrification of a Brooklyn neighborhood takes on a sinister new meaning. So like, obviously I live in a center of, not obviously, I do live in a center of gentrification, so I'm curious about that. Alyssa Cole's name is a name that I have not read, like A Princess in Theory, which is the rom-com that I guess she's known for, but I haven't read her work, so I'm curious to check it out. And I'm fascinated with gentrification as in plots and as something that a lot of us grapple with, especially young people of color. So there's that. And I am, last but not least, I am reading Memorial by Bryan Washington. I did not read Lot, so I can't compare it, but this is coming out October 6th, and it's really good. It's the voice is awesome. The conceit, if that's a way to put it, of the plot is really interesting. So essentially like it's a queer couple who the main protagonist is black, and his boyfriend is Japanese, and the boyfriend, who's a chef, ends up leaving to go to Japan, and his mom comes to stay with the partner. So it's been really entertaining and fun to read so far, in part because it's partly based in Houston, and I have like a ton of fondness for Houston, as I used to live there. I learned how to drive there. It's just not really an ideal place to learn how to drive, especially if you're a New Yorker, because those tendencies don't mix. But the narrative is entertaining, the voices are just real, and just kind of laugh out loud funny, which I don't really have that experience a lot. Like, I know there are people who are like, oh, it's, I LOL'd, and I don't usually do that when I'm reading, but I did have a couple moments where I was like, oh, or, like I felt myself blushing a little bit, like, oh, that's got a lot going on here. So I definitely highly recommend that. But those are the books that I've read recently that I really liked, and then a couple that I'm looking forward to reading and digging into. I also read Everybody Looking by Candice Illo, and that is coming out soon. I want to say like September-ish. And that's a young adult novel in verse. I think it's her debut. And it is about a Nigerian American, sort of first generation black girl who is navigating the world between, or like her old self back home with her Nigerian family, and those expectations versus the ones that greet her when she goes to Howard University. And it's just really lovely. lots of really tangible, beautiful details, and it goes back and forth through time, which is like just a narrative experience that I enjoy when it's done well. Obviously, not everyone can pull it off, but Candice Illo does that really well in Everybody Looking. And then it's just, I like novels in verse, and I think they've become more popular. They're easier to read, and I just love the poetic constraint that also reveals something really lovely in the narrative. It's part of why I like Elizabeth Acevedo's work. So I think those comparisons are inevitable, but the book also really feels like it stands on its own, like as its own thing. I'm also looking forward to The Office of Historical Corrections, which is a novella and a collection of short stories by Danielle Evans, who is the short story author of Before You Suffocate Your Own Full Self, which I was a huge fan of, and I am a huge fan of Danielle's. So I started reading a little bit of that on my phone, and trying to decrease your screen time when you have a Kindle app on your screen is it's not a good look. Like, it's not actually something that I'm successful at. So I think I'm gonna have to let one restriction go or the other. It's probably gonna be just like giving up on trying to reduce my screen time. I am also reading very slowly so I can savor it, Transcendent Kingdom by Akyasi, author of Homegoing, one of my favorite novels of all time. So I will say that it does not disappoint already. It's just going to be like an amazing ride. So I hope we're all ready for how Transcendent Kingdom is going to transform our reading lives. That's what I feel like is already happening. So anyway, that's what I have for you in terms of what I'm reading, what I'm looking forward to. I'd love to hear from you in the comments if you have fall releases that you're really looking forward to. If you've read these books, if you're interested in them, I will put links in the description box below, and I will see you again soon. Take care.